Hello there and welcome back to another Friday night. I am Rafael di Furia, back at it again. Tonight, going to be talking again a little bit more about life in Italy, life as an expat, and living life abroad. This week is going to be something that's a little bit different than what you've seen on my channel before, and also a little bit different than what you've been seeing on my channel recently, because there have been a lot of updates about what's been going on here. And like I said in my last video that I uploaded late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, I said this Friday was going to be a little bit different. So if you did happen to come to this video looking for an update on what is going on in Italy, I would say watch my previous video, just because that will have some of the most recent updates of what things are looking like here in Italy. But for those of you who've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I've interviewed some people on here, and then also on the podcast that I'm a part of, the Italian Citizenship Podcast, and also the Italian Real Estate Podcast. I'm usually the one who's doing the interviewing, but today I'm actually going to be interviewed. And in this video, you will see highlights from the Bold Perceptions podcast hosted by Nick and Jake. Couple of great guys. We had a lot of fun. If you would like to see the full version of the podcast, you can go and check them out on their podcast and their Instagram. They also have a Facebook account. It is already up now. So if you would like to listen to the full interview, you can go down to the link below. The full version is audio only, but just for some of the highlights, I did happen to get a file with the video so that I could share it with you guys. So let's just get started with it. Then as soon as I got that call from the Italian consul, I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's make this happen. Let's get to Italy. It's about time, because that was something that I was always so passionate about, my ancestry, my background, to make sure that I could explore that, because that was the #1 goal, to be able to explore this land that I had been given this love for, that had been instilled to me since such a young age, that I'd always been passionate about. I mean, even I had visited Italy a number of times, and that only re-solidified that feeling for me. And so that day that I got the call, it was just that completely was life-changing. And it happened to come at the perfect point in time for me, because I had been previously working a job in television and production. It was a dream to be able to get to that point, but this dream of getting to Italy was so much stronger, so much greater, that I was just like, okay, got to make this happen. I don't care what happens. I have to know what it's like.
Moving, but I love this. And it feels like a lot of Americans have that about, we're so interested in our ancestry, because, you know, Americans don't have much history. So we say, hey, I'm
like everybody's American. From everywhere else.
Exactly. But I know that feeling when I went to Oslo, Norway. Like, you can just feel something in the air, or in Germany where I have ancestry. One second. I like this, that you had the backup plan just in case with the teaching English. But why wasn't there any jobs? And when you were getting denied nonstop, I mean, you know, the Italian way of life was just like, I had to be here and make it work.
No, actually, okay. So I'll tell you, this is actually one point that, because I've been abroad for, say, over 11 years now. One thing that I've noticed with people is that if you give yourself the option to fail, then that's what's going to happen. You have to just fully commit, fully jump into it. If you don't absolutely give yourself absolutely no other options but moving forward, then that's the only direction you can move, even if it's slow, even if it's difficult, even if there is a struggle. I mean, even now, I would say things aren't quite the best that I've ever had it, but I've made that exception. I made choices in my life that I knew would lead to where I am now, and I'm happier now, even though I'm not as stable. If you give yourself that option to fail and to go back, not even to fail, but to, if it doesn't work out for you in that country, that if you're going to give yourself that option to go back home, the amount of people that I've seen in my time abroad that end up, like, say, going back to America, Brazil, Canada, whatever their country may be, and try to make a life abroad for themselves again, end up not necessarily being able to really make it. They end up always going back and falling back on that plan, because when it starts getting a little tough, you want to seek that thing that's comfortable for you. But it's important to figure out how to be comfortable with being a little uncomfortable in a new setting that's different for you. Okay, there's times where maybe that's not even an option for a person, and they actually have to return to their country. But the people that I've seen that have stayed abroad and not given themselves the option to go back are the people who've done relatively better. Not that they've done amazingly, but they've had a more successful life as an expat, so to speak.
Where is this expat mentality, do you think, comes from? You personally, but overall the people you've met, seen come and go. Like, why should I sit and suffer in this foreign part of the world instead of go home and be comfortable? What is it that makes an expat brain tick?
It was just always something that I kind of had inside of me. I knew that moving abroad, like I was saying, ever since I was a kid, was just the next natural progression in my life. It was never a question about if, it was just about when and how. That's always the really big question that anybody has, is the how. And for me also, it was very much that drive to be able to explore my roots and to be able to get in touch with that a bit more. But once you start going abroad, you see that the world that there's so much more out there culturally, linguistically. And I mean, and I'm sure you saw when you're out in Europe, how you go just a few kilometers, a few miles from one place to another, that are not only speaking a different dialect, but a different language. It's a different people. It's a different way of life. It's a different way of thinking. And so that was one thing for me that I just wanted to kind of see more, experience more.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated with this whole expat mind. Are we the modern day explorers? Like, do we get off on the adventure and the unknown? And for me, what I think it is I feel way more alive when I'm on the road, when I'm living with different people in different scenarios with that no pattern recognition. And I just feel the creativity and just the drive to get moving. Now, I think I could possibly do that back home in America, but you can get out of your comfort zone in weird ways. I got to go take a ballerina class or do some shit. But in Italy or another place, like, I'm just thrown into it. And I love like, chaos and thriving in it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, when you're abroad, like, you're just constantly outside of your comfort zone. Being in your country where you grew up, where you know the culture, where you know the way of life, where you know everything, it's very familiar, and you can kind of go on autopilot a bit more. Granted, of course, you can get into that if you spend enough time anywhere. But I think you raised a very good point about that it is this kind of new way of exploration. And especially, I think, for Americans, with so many of us who are family, with so many of us who've had our family come in the past few generations, for us, and it's not that far of a stretch to think, oh, well, my grandfather did it, my great-grandfather did it, why can't I? Or even like my case, my father did it, why can't I? And so that was just kind of, for me, also one of the things that was just, well, my family, like, one of my ancestors who came to America arrived literally with nothing, not even a few coins in his pocket. Somebody happened to give him an apple. With that apple, he sold it. He bought 2 apples. With those 2 apples, he bought 4 apples. With those 4 apples, it ended up going to the point where he ended up owning like a few blocks of real estate in a major city where he lived. He ended up losing all of that in the crash in the early 1900s. But that's the type of thing that got me inspired, that, okay, we live in a world where we're much more connected. It's much more easy to figure out how to make a living now than it was back then. There's so many more new ways of making that happen that they just didn't have that possibility of back then. So we're playing it on easy mode in comparison with them.
That's a really good point. So when you're over in Italy, and it sounded like you said at first, you wasn't the best, you were struggling finding a job. How did you get yourself to stay there and not like go home or go to a different part of the world? Like, what is it about Italy that you know that, hey, this is where I'm supposed to be?
For me, Italy always felt like home, even before I moved here, even visiting here. So that was something that was, for me personally, a huge part of the reason why I was staying here. But again, it also, I think, kind of goes back to what I was saying before about not giving myself another option. I'm also...
Hey, I'll tell you what, though. After, what was it, May 18th, 2020 was pretty damn good in Italy because everything, for the most part, was open up and there was no tourists. That was like, I was in Florence, dead. There was nobody there. It was a total movie. I went to Roma early June, and it was like... Yeah. It was, you never see, that's like when the Huns sacked Rome and no one was in Rome type deal. It was amazing.
No, and I had that same experience in Venice. I uploaded a video about this, and my big problem with Venice is that sometimes it feels like an outdoor mall. It's so overrun with tourists sometimes and just shops and everything. But that was the first time I was walking around there, and I heard not only more Italian spoken, but local dialect, which I had almost never heard before in Venice. And just of all places, like I was thinking, wait, oh, actually people from here do happen to live here. What a crazy thought. What a crazy idea. It was really it was in some ways a chilling experience to see things so quiet, but at the same time, a very wonderful opportunity to be able to get to see these places without all those tourists and to get to actually see it for what it is. Like you were saying, you were in Florence, you're in Rome, like actually getting to see those cities in a way that most people never have and never will, or at least we hope that they never will get to see it like that again.
And I want to tie it back into, you know, what you do with this YouTube channel, because I love it. I've been watching, I probably watch hours and hours of your content, the $1 Million Voice. But it never starts off like that. And it's not easy to do this content stuff. You know what I mean?
No, definitely not.
From over here, or you suck at the beginning. And I'm wondering kind of your whole, is this similar to your expat thing about, hey, I want to make the jump. I know I need to be over here. And now I want to make a YouTube channel. I want to put my voice out there. Or where does that drive come from? Tell me the challenges of, you know, putting yourself out there and creating this content, and why do you keep doing it? I mean, is the money that great, or what really?
No, not at all. No, actually, honestly, the finances are not a motivation in this project that I do whatsoever. I honestly think that if money is a motivating factor, you've already failed. Like I don't do it for fame. I don't do it for wealth. I don't do it for the views. I don't do it for anything. Honestly, the reason why I upload my videos is just to try and help that one person that might have been in the situation that I was in, looking for that information that I was looking for, and making a difference in that person's life. I can't even tell you how many literally hundreds of messages that I've received from people telling me about how much of an impact that I've made on their life. And that's for me what makes it all worth it, because I've sacrificed so much to be able to do my YouTube channel. Like I take time away from, because I have to work a normal job. Like YouTube is not my income. It makes a little bit of a difference, but it's nothing that I can live off of. And that's something that's a huge misconception that people have. Like they think, oh, YouTube, lots of money, lots of big, famous, this, that, and the other. And like I was saying, all these messages from people that have told me that I've made a big impact on their life, and have actually seen that. I mean, actually, even some of my Brazilian friends that I was just talking about, they ended up in the town where I am because of a video that I had made. And so for me to see that direct impact on somebody's life just because of that, of something that I made online, I was completely blown back by that. Like that had never really entered into my mind. Cause like I'm sitting in a room with a camera making these videos. Sometimes I see a comment pop up, sometimes I see some likes pop up, but basically I'm kind of doing this here on my own. So I don't always get that like direct interaction. Like, I mean, for example, I've done a little bit of acting and like some improv when I was younger. And that's something where you get like a direct, immediate response. If it works, you know. If it doesn't work, you really know. And on YouTube and online, you can see a little bit, you can get an idea of something, but you don't get that same kind of like knowledge of what happens until somebody actually takes the time of their day to let you know what you've done for them. And there's been times like I've been brought to tears with like some of the stories that people have shared with me.
Here's a great point though. It's usually, especially when you start off with this creating stuff, it's not monetary, but there's a ton of value, you know, in way different ways. For example, like I said,
definitely
at the beginning of this video, I've been watching your stuff for about a year. You know what I mean?
Wow.
We're talking face to face, hopefully develop a relationship, you know, and that's what I'm saying. Like when you put value out there, it usually comes back to you in certain ways. Know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's what I was saying kind of before. Like if you go into it with the idea, oh, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, I'm going to get the money, you've already lost it because you don't see that. I mean, but it's the other little things that end up making it worth it in the end. And I've met like a number of my subscribers and I've had great times with them. Some of them have become friends, like really good friends. And that's been another way of like, that little something to gain from what I'm doing. But like I said, really for me, the main goal was to make the video that one person would see that one time that would make the difference between them going crazy and having a successful transition as an expat, or even to getting their Italian citizenship.
Speaking of that, I know you're a busy man, so we can, slowly start wrapping this thing up. I appreciate your time so far. A lot of good stuff. What does the future hold for the man with the $1 million voice?
I hope you all have enjoyed these highlights from the Bold Perceptions podcast. If you would like to see the full version and hear the answer to that last question that was asked, you can go to the link down in the comment section below, where you will find a pinned comment with the links to be able to find Bold Perceptions on social media and their podcast. And of course, as always, a huge thank you to those of you who are patrons and allow me to be able to continue my project of trying to help people and trying to get information out there, and allowing me to do things and take the time like this interview that you're watching tonight. And so really thank you guys so much for allowing me to take that time out of my week and away from my work to be able to do these things. But of course, as always, I'm Rafael di Furia. Thank you for joining me again for another Friday night. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. Later.